Hey guys, Nolar here, back with the 5-9 crew. We're going to talk about something really spicy right now. I just was browsing the Gacha subreddit, the Gacha gaming subreddit, I should say, and this came up. Well, before we dive right in, just to introduce everyone who's here on the 5-9 crew, we've got Hydros, say hello.
What's going on?
And I've got Nazirachi here.
What's going on, everybody?
Alrighty, so look, as you can probably tell from the video here, we've got a spicy little topic. Mihoyo, who makes Honkai Impact, and for most of you, Genshin Impact, they increased the price of gems of many regions without any warning. So this was, 16 hours ago? I can't do the math. It's too late for me right now. But anyways, they posted on the Facebook page that price increases on the following countries: Indonesia, India, South Africa, Iceland, Russia, Colombia, and Brazil. Their stated reasoning for the price hike is due to policy changes on app stores, which, as far as this poster understands, which is walk free, was a change exclusively on the Apple Store. But I personally know Mihoyo hates price discrimination across all platforms, so they just jack the prices in these specific regions all over the place: Apple Store, Google Play Store, as well as their own PC market. Basically, items go up by about 70 to 80% what they were before. So, for these people playing Genshin Impact in Indonesia, India, South Africa, Iceland, Russia, Colombia, and Brazil, rip wallets, like hardcore rip wallets. For example, in Brazil, it used to be 399.99 rubles for the top not rubles. I forgot I don't know what the currency in Russia is, but it went from 389.99 to 549.99, which is huge. So yeah, this is pretty big news. Why do you guys? What's your first impressions of when hearing about this stuff? Let's start off with Hydros.
Not good is the first impression that I get. Not good. At least for these countries that are actually being affected, because not only are they already paying for these, currencies, now they have to pay quite a lot more, and it affects, players who are spenders, and then if they get to a point to where they're spending too much and they have to dial it back, it's when people start quitting, and that's when the game can take a hit.
Yeah. Nas, any thoughts?
Yeah, like what Hydro said, it's very negative, like public reception when the established price is one way for a certain amount of time and then it goes up. Most people were probably hoping that prices would go down, or that they would introduce some type of sales to kind of coincide with the generosity the community have showered onto this game. Like, their last I checked yesterday have already made like over $260 million back, which is probably more than 2 to 3 times their developmental costs and their initial advertising budget. So again, most of the community was probably hoping that we would be rewarded, or at least acknowledged for helping them be one of the top, if not the single best gacha game in terms of the market value and stuff right now. But unfortunately, it seems they've taken this turn, which personally I believe to be like an anti-vendor tactic, but I'm assuming we can get into that more here in a second as to why they actually did this. But yeah, it's definitely not going to be received well by the community in any area. Like, we're not going to be affected by this over here in America, but that doesn't mean that people over here won't take notice of what they're doing and be paranoid that, maybe they'll do the same to us over here next. So it's definitely not a good thing in the eyes of the community.
Right. I mean, you got a good point. Even though we in North America aren't affected directly, like our prices didn't go up, but it shows you that the developer has set a precedent that they're willing to just bring the prices up. And you kind of alluded to it. One of the reasons why is potentially to fight back against vendors. So as right here it says, needless to say, this is a huge hit to our already sad, poor wallets. Some people believe the increase happened because of international users buying from our stores, which are was cheaper when converted to dollars, which is BS. Every other store managed to solve this issue with VPN blocking or banning, gift blocks, and other such measures, and it worked out fine for them. So, look, if it is to block out vendors, and if you guys don't understand what we mean by vendors, it's let's say Nazarachi's in the Philippines, and the conversion rate from the Filipino currency to US dollars is super cheap, and whatever the $100 US package, I think it's like 8,000 Primo Gems or something like that. What might cost me if I send it to Nas, my account to Nas in the Philippines, might cost me only $50 US. Even though for them $50 US is quite a lot, it's just the conversion rate.
They can run that with an overhead, basically. Like they'll charge you $60 for the service, load you up with $50 worth of currency, which is still $100 worth over here, and then they make a little money off the top. Or alternatively, they'll do some really sketchy stuff with refunding, which is where the developers that's where they really take notice and get upset.
Yeah, and the reason why refunding is so bad is because if I ask for a refund from Google, they have no questions. They just give me my money back, and then they just directly charge the developers that. So developers both lose out on the money they could have earned and the money they have to pay back to Google for the refund. And of course, that account gets, further ahead through illegitimate means. So vendoring has been and always will be an issue, but as of late, it's gotten a little bit better because of, like this poster said, VPN blocking or banning, gift blocks, and other measures. And it's kind of curious as to why Mihoyo hasn't implemented that to combat, the vendors. So, Hydros, your thoughts on potentially this is just to fight back against the vendors?
Yeah, it's weird that they decided to raise the price instead of actually do something to implement a feature that could actually prevent something like this to happen. Now, if I'm not mistaken, when you create your account, you select what region you're in. If you create an account, you select what region you're in, you're locked to that region. And obviously they could use that to their advantage to block you from paying in other regions if you're using something like a VPN. So if let's say I'm in the United States, I'm in the global servers, and I VPN over to like Argentina or something, and the price is significantly cheaper over there. So if they locked it to the region that you're actually in, the Argentinian price would actually raise up to meet the dollar amount that you would technically be paying normally. So that's actually something that I believe, I don't know entirely, it's my guess, that what Fortnite did to block when Fortnite, before it became, at least on Android, before it became a part of the Play Store, when they had their actual launcher, or when they actually had it in the Samsung store. Yeah, so it was the Epic, and you downloaded the Epic one from the Samsung store, and then you installed the game and whatnot. And with Fortnite, you could actually use the Samsung marketplace to influence your prices using a VPN. I know because I've done it, but there was no stop to it. There wasn't really anything that they didn't do anything about it. All they did was just stop it and block it to where your prices would raise to meet what you're actually supposed to pay. So they did fix that in a way, but they didn't do anything to anybody like an account wise. But that was a good way for them to help prevent it. And then now, obviously, they took I think they took all that away, and now it's just a part of Google and Apple and stuff like that. So that in itself got rid of it. But yeah, Fortnite had a problem with this, and they actually fixed it, but they didn't go and say, "Hey, we're gonna raise prices."
Yeah, I feel like this is the lazy way of dealing with the issue, right? Like Fortnite actually went in, developed back-end systems that would identify when a user was trying to access the store from a different region than what was normal, and then the system would flag it and prevent them from doing that. Whereas Mihoyo is just like, forget about that, forget about dev costs or any R&D into any type of quote unquote, anti-cheat to circumvent the system. We'll just raise the prices for all these, lower income countries so that the overall spending amount is going to be roughly the same. Because when you compare the change, like it sounds like a lot on paper that the value went up 80% in Brazil. They're still paying $5 less than what we would pay here in US. So they're still paying less, which again, that's terrible for them because their cost of living and everything else is way out of skewed with the new value, but it's just enough of a difference to dissuade someone in America from wanting to buy from a Brazilian vendor. I mean, the price difference is only $5. Is it really worth it? No, it's not really worth it to put your account at risk. So it feels like a very lazy way of achieving the same goals through no software development, but just manipulating the market directly.
Now, and you guys both make excellent points. The question is, as you mentioned earlier, Nas, that they have been financially successful with this game, right? 260 million in the last plus in the last since its launch, which is what I think their development cost was like 100 billion. So yes, they've recouped their cost and then some, right? Because they are so successful and everyone kind of knows this. Does this make them look really out of touch by just directly being lazy and just lifting prices higher? I mean, I'm just looking at public backlash in the public court of opinion. How does it look?
I definitely think it looks bad, more so for residents of the affected regions, but it doesn't look good when you're so successful and instead of, again, rewarding or even acknowledging the community for their involvement in your success, you just immediately increase the prices. I definitely don't think it looks good, but it's definitely better that they did it now as opposed to waiting to tackle the issue later. This was definitely one of the situations that was time sensitive. And for damage control purposes, it'll be a lot easier for them to make an excuse and give a reason as to why they did this now, this early on in the game, as opposed to waiting to like year 1 or year 2 and then doing it. So at least they're responding quickly. However, I don't think this was the best avenue they could have approached whatever issues they were having with the price points.
Given how this was already a thing, right? The people already were paying lower prices by VPNing or whatever to a different country and whatnot. So, and they still made their development cost and then some. They're not losing money by any means by people doing this. So it wasn't a necessary thing for them to have to raise the costs in my eyes. Yes, it is a problem, and yes, they should fix it. However, I mean, yes, they probably would have earned probably a lot more than what they have if people had paid the actual prices. I understand that, first of all, but they still made that and then some, as I said. And then if they had just said, "Hey, we noticed some differences within the stores. We're going to be implementing a fix," or just had not said anything and just once they figured out an actual good fix into their actual, like, their servers and systems, then say something. Don't just raise the prices and then that literally punishes the other players who are actually paying their legitimate prices at the same time of punishing the players who are, VPNing and whatnot to get these prices. Because again, as you said, the $5 difference, to me, even if I've done it before, $5 difference, I don't care about a $5 difference. I'd rather I'll just pay in the U.S. store for all that matters. So, the $5 difference does dissuade people from actually doing it, but it's more of a punishment to the other countries that weren't doing it in the first place. And it seems lazy on their development part that they're not taking the step to actually do something in their own system to fix it. It's more like, hey, we're going to raise prices. They didn't really acknowledge, they didn't say anything. This was just out of the blue. They didn't say anything even about, I guess, the price raise. And they also didn't say anything. If they do say anything, I want to know if they're going to say something, hey, we're working on a long-term fix to then reduce these prices back. But the price raise in general shouldn't have been a thing.
The few are ruining it for the many in this situation.
Right. This is the first time I've seen a company raise prices, but then not even really fix the problem. Like the fact of the matter, you can still VPN. The problem's not actually fixed. They should have actually fixed it internally instead of raising their prices. Raising their prices probably was not the best move. I know they want to deter people, but this was not a good move to do.
Well, okay, so you guys are saying it kind of punishes the players that are legitimately paying full prices in their respective regions. because the prices are increased now, do you think this is going to affect their player base at all? Like, are there going to be less people playing, or we're going to have less purchasers in general, or how do you see this affecting their player base in these specific regions?
I definitely see the initial reaction being a lot less spending coming from these players. Over time, I'm not really sure how much it'll matter in the grand scheme of things because, like I said, they did tackle it kind of early. So I would suspect that they would maybe lose a couple people. You know, when I say a couple, it's probably a good many that were already on the fence about quitting due to how boring the game is right now. But then 1.1 will come out. There'll be tons of hype around it. I would assume that they'll gain a lot of their active player base back. And ultimately, those players that were considering spending can still pursue playing the game purely free to play. So I would say it may dissuade some people, especially those who are like Dolphin tier or less. But the people that were dedicated to whaling probably are going to be relatively unaffected. And the people that were going to just be free to play anyway will probably continue to play. So there's only a certain percentage of the minnow, the dolphin, and all those tiers between free to play and whale. Those are going to be the most affected. Not the extremes on either end. I would feel like.
Well, even if it's affecting those, it still would affect probably a lot of the whales, at least in these countries. Not so much anywhere else, but it's these specific countries. If they increased it, as they said, 70 to 80%. If a lot of this is, if they were spending, some of their paycheck, if some of them were living, check to check, or if they're, getting a couple, spending a little, getting a couple, some stuff like that, and they just raised it, and it's literally like all to near all their like one paycheck, then it's like, who wants to spend that? I'd rather spend to live in the place I'm living at than spend on a game. So I mean, yeah, people will probably go to free to play as you said, Nas, but I feel like people probably won't spend as much at all because people like to live and eat. So
yeah, most of the spending community exists outside of the 1% of the whaling base that's going to be unaffected either way. So realistically, it does affect like 99% of the player base besides the filthy rich community.
Well, since we have a whale, Nolar, since you're the expert whale here today, if the U.S. prices went up 70 to 80%, would you still whale, or would you significantly spend less?
No, I would still probably whale. I would still probably.
You had to actually think about it for a second, bro. I appreciate.
Well, no, but that's the thing is because if it was like 10%, 25%, no thoughts. But you're talking 70%. Well, that's a lot, right? So we're instead of $100, I'm paying $170 for what is that? 4 or 5 multis. I'd rather go spend that $170 on Dokkan at that point. You know what I mean? And those prices are atrocious. So here, actually, this is a good point because for those of you who are not understand or new to whaling in general, or like how it works, how these gacha companies get you, this is how it works. They set a precedent price, and this is a technical term. It's called the anchor price. The anchor price in the US for Genshin Impact is $100 for 8,000 or so Primo Gems, okay? And that's exorbitant for a lot of people. I still think that's still quite a bit, like too much, right? It should be cheaper. But the reason why they do that is because they make you balk at the price and be like, oh my God, that's so expensive. Who the hell would buy that? Yeah, I would, but 99% of the people wouldn't do it. And the reason they do that is because when they put on a sale for, hey, you can get 8,000 Primo Gems for $80, you automatically start to think, I should get that, right? This is 99% of the people probably won't, but some of those people, if you've ever spent money, period, on a game, then you already internally know the anchor pricing. And when the sales happen, you automatically start thinking that is a good value because they have like Pavlov dog, like trained you to think $100, 8,000 Primo Gems, $80, 8,000 Primo Gems. That's a steal. Let me go pick that up right away. So this is what, for me, when I look at this is the worst way to go because you already set the anchor pricing for all these regions and now you're readjusting it, well, you're going to lose, like in my mind, you practically lose your entire player base. And then of the spenders, the people who even spent like for the passes, right? The blessings or whatever they're called. You lose all those people, and then the only way to get money back from that region is when you get new players and new whales to come in, and they don't even know what the old price was like. They just see, oh, $170 is 8,000 primo gems. Okay, so that's the anchor pricing. So when it goes down to 150, I definitely buy that because that's a sale. So to me, like if you to answer your question, Hydros, would I consider it? Since I already had the old anchor pricing, that's why I had to think about it. You see what I'm saying? If I was a brand new player to the game and didn't realize what the old pricing was, I would have been like, oh, okay, $170 for 8,000 primo gems. That's just the way to go. And then when they put it on sale or double the value, it's like, oh, that's sweet. That's so good. So just to give you guys a heads up, right? When you first enter the shop and they show you, hey, 80% off or blah, 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 blah. The whole point is you need to think of it as, oh, they're valuating this a lot more than what they normally do. So I should definitely buy the sale, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I was going to get to that point because I was saying like anchor pricing is a very big deal. And what they did is just completely set a brand new anchor pricing. So like just to finish this point off, rubles, it used to be 17 rubles for a blessing in Brazil, or I don't know what, actually that rubles is Russian. I don't know what the Brazil currency is, but it used to be $17 in Brazil, but now it's 27.
Brazilian real.
Okay, so it used to be 17 real, and now it's 27 real for just the pass or the daily login blessing, right? So that's a huge increase. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't know. The anchor pricing, what they did just doesn't sit well with all the spenders because they're just trying to recalibrate how we look at the value. And at that point, for me, if I was in that region, I would have said, screw this game, I'm done. The one thing that we didn't really touch on, well, we kind of did, but I want to explore this more in depth, was they gave no warning. No forewarning whatsoever. It literally was, if you went to sleep and then you woke up the next day, it was 80% more for some of these guys. And they're just like, what happened? Did my game glitch? Is my account like banned or is something going on? Like there was no warning as to like when this was going to be implemented. Now, do you think that if they gave a warning like a week, they wouldn't be getting as much backlash as they are now? Or does it not matter? Like, what are your thoughts, Nas?
They probably would have gotten more backlash then and been able to have some damage control before the price change actually happened, as opposed to just shifting that back now. Again, this whole strategy seems like kind of a head scratcher when it comes to their political, or not political, their community relations with, how how they want to present themselves as like, oh, this is a really generous company, or oh, this is a really stingy company. So I don't really know what their motivations were beyond doing this, but not saying anything. I don't know. It feels like when you see a scandal on the news, and do you respond to it and give it more credence, or do you just kind of ignore it and sweep it under the rug? And it really seems like they're going with the sweep it under the rug to hope that the vast majority of people don't even pay it any attention. By not addressing it, that helps justify that strategy a little bit more.
Hydros?
Well, if they addressed it, it's more of like a flag saying, hey, there's an exploit that you can do. We haven't fixed it yet, but we're going to raise the prices. So literally go do it before we raise the prices. If they had said anything, that's literally what they would be saying to the player base who don't live in these regions. So if they had said it, people probably would have jumped in and done more of it than if they had just stayed silent. And I mean, yeah, again, I don't like the raise prices idea, but it's something, I guess.
Oh, I mean, okay, so wait.
Yeah, I feel like now they should be like, hey, we raised the prices. Now we're working on something. We'll lower them as quickly as possible once we have our systems updated after a new update or something.
Okay, so
but
you're saying that
staying silent probably a little bit better than if they said, hey, this is happening. Basically, go spend cheaper money and don't give us more money.
Okay, so I see your
If
point,
they had said something,
but wouldn't that be a reason for them to flag accounts and then just ban them post purchases?
right? They definitely could. They definitely could.
Like you know what I mean? It's like
But
I'm getting your
at the
money
same
anyways.
time, it's like, yeah. At the same time, it's like, they're still giving us money, so we won't let them go, but we should still fix it because that's what Fortnite did. They didn't ban anybody. They just said, okay, people are doing this, we're gonna fix it so that they can't do it anymore, but we still got money out of it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So people are still spending. Now, if it was like doing like refunding and stuff like that, yeah, that ban gone. But I mean, this isn't really a player problem. This is more of poor implementation problem.
Right. I mean, and just to my final point here, is Final Fantasy 14 kind of had a similar move where they delayed a price hike where they gave people enough time, like you said, to purchase stuff or just straight out quit. You know what I mean? So, and that was only because the Final Fantasy 14 community was so loud and vocal about how BS, like they were going to implement it right away. The public backlash and, just everyone voicing their opinions on social media, on their websites, or, their forums, all this stuff can put pressure on a company and re-change their policy. So, do you think there's any way that Mihoyo would backtrack? Is that going to be public pressure, or do they just like screw it? We're done. This is it. We more or less put a band-aid on the problem, and that's it. What do you guys think?
You have familiarity with Honkai, right?
Yep.
LR? At least somewhat.
Yep.
How has Mihoyo been with public outcry in that game? Like, how have they done it? That's gonna kind of influence my answer, is depending on how they've answered previous to something like Honkai, because Genshin became big super quick. So obviously, they're paying attention to the community because there's a big one for it. So depending on how they've reacted before is kind of how my answer would be.
Okay, so from what I remember, I only played Honkai for about 6 to 8 months, like hardcore, and then dabbled in back and forth. So the basic gist of Mihoyo is when it comes to their money, they don't listen to anything. But if it comes to like cheating or like in-game systems and modes and stuff, they'll take feedback, constructive feedback. You know what I mean? But if it's like, hey, this looks like way out of whack in terms of pricing, they haven't budged on that period. So,
Well, I mean more so when the community has an outcry, just not even over like a pricing issue, but maybe like a bug or like just the direction that they've been, like they've been
like bugs,
receptive to it?
yeah. So anything in game affecting their modes and like playability, they're very receptive to it. But when it comes to feedback on their pricing, they haven't done anything with it. So like it's like a two sides, right? One is strictly, yeah, they're extremely good with the community, but that's only when it comes to the gameplay. You know what I mean? Like where if it bugs and stuff like
Well,
that. But if it's coming to their pricing model, where a lot of people have complained, like that's a lot, it's not cheap. You could do a little better. They just haven't done anything with it. Anyways, we've babbled on long enough about it. Any final thoughts before we close out here, guys? Nas?
Hopefully Mihoyo over the long term keeps the community opinions of their game high priority. I don't think that they expected too much backlash from this little change, because in their eyes, it's probably just kind of normalizing things. But it is up to the people that are affected the most to speak out. Let us know how y'all are affected so that we can, respond in kind. So with that being said, I'm not a fan of moves like this, but it's something that I worry about for us in the future. We're not affected right now, but the best way to combat it is to be as vocal as possible. That'd be my final thoughts there.
All right, Hydros.
Yeah. I would like to first of all meet someone that would be okay with this change, because I would like to slap them, because that's insane. But yeah, it can become a part to where if they do it in some areas, maybe they start to trickle it other places. They start slowly going down the line of countries to the point to where now it's all of us are raised in prices, and it's like, I'd rather not have that trickle effect to where that happens. And hopefully Mihoyo does figure out a way to solve this on their end in the game, just via a patch update or whatever have you, so that they can reduce these prices so people in their own regions can pay a reasonable price instead of paying like their entire salary on it or their entire paycheck on it every month and stuff like that, because that's quite unreasonable in terms of in those countries. I feel that's very unreasonable to have that kind of pricing, and I get why they're doing it, but hopefully they do fix it, implement something, and then reduce it back so that everyone's more fair and not someone's paying literally an arm and a leg and eating like a crouton for breakfast versus hey, I can have a bowl of cereal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And also don't want this trickle effect either. Please don't bring it over here.
Yeah, guys, this is not a good look. It's just my final thoughts. It's not good. Again, Mihoyo is both the developer and the publisher. So remember, there's two arms to making any game. You have the developers, who are the creatives that want to see, who are fans and want you to enjoy it. But then there's our publishers, who are trying to recoup as much of their costs back and earn some money out of it. Now, the publishers are the ones that determine if this gets trickled down to us or if they stay this way, because they're going to figure out if they can make 1 more cent with any change in policy, they're going to make that change. So if they figure, hey, we'll raise the prices in the US, we'll lose like 20% of our player base, but then some of those whales will stick around and still pay the prices, that'll still earn us more money in the long run. They'll probably run that out. So yeah, I'm not a fan, and I think you're the only recourse, like Nas said, is you guys got to make your voices loud and clear to them that this is not good. Even if you aren't from Indonesia, India, South Africa, Iceland, Russia, Colombia, and Brazil, because again, once they set this precedent, there's no stopping them to doing it in whatever region you're in. So with that said, in the comments below, let us know, are you in these affected regions? What do you think about going to sleep at a $99 pack and then it becomes $170 the next day? Do you think Mihoyo is in the right? Is Genshin going to outlast this controversy and get bigger? Or is this the one thing that crumbles the game onto itself? Because right now it's the hype is kind of dying down. I mean, it'd be one thing if this happened right when 1.1 drops. Sure, that might have like mitigated some of the backlash, maybe. But anyways, you guys let us know in the comments down below. Again, the love and support you guys have been showing us for here on Five Nine Gaming has been great. We definitely appreciate you guys being here. So definitely check us out on Twitch when we go live with some streams. Definitely check our Twitter. All of our social media is in the description below. And on behalf of myself, Nazirachi, and Hydros, thanks a lot, guys. We'll catch you next time. We're out.